Hi there. So today we had a discussion on one of the shamanic forums that I'm involved in, and someone suggested that I should make a video about it so that they could reference my particular viewpoint on what was being said. So I wrote down, reading again, a summary of the original inquiry, and then I'll answer it for you. I can't journey in a controlled way. Sometimes at home, I'm suddenly journeying but can't control it. I'm also confused about entry points. Some say find a hole and go to Underworld. Others say Underworld is dangerous and to follow through a hole in a rock to the top of the mountain to meet a guide. What can I do and what is the right way? I'm also confused about the role of the drum in journeying. I don't believe it's just about cycling the brain a certain way. Okay, so the first thing that we need to talk about here is obviously this is someone who is having trouble staying in their body when they're resting and also is very connected to the spiritual world. On one hand, you need to learn to rest to be healthy, and also you might have grounding issues, which I talk about that in a lot of different places and other videos and things like that. We don't need to go over that today. What I do want to talk about is the fact that the network is kind of shifting. The way these spiritual things work has been changing in the last 10 years. The spiritual sphere and the physical sphere are getting a little closer together, and because of that, there's more open communication there. So what we're seeing is people who don't need as many of the tools as we once did to journey, and situations where spirits and guides and things like that are coming to this world to communicate with people who don't even have experience with us and don't know what's happening. So for this person, what I would suggest is learning to figure out which parts of your body are where. For me, and for a lot of people like me, especially us right-handed people, we'll find that our right foot or our right side is sort of in the physical world, and our left side is sort of more in other world, in the spiritual realm. And what you can do is you can learn to shift back and forth. And by shifting, what I mean is you're shifting the weight of your consciousness in your body. So by shifting to the right side for me, I'm more in the physical world. Shifting to the left side, I can journey like that. It's that simple. Besides shifting weight, the issue about the entry points, where you go depends on and what you think about where you go has a tendency to depend on the culture. Some tribes in North America believe that to go down, that's something that a dead person does, so you don't do that. So going down into lower world is a bad idea. In other traditions, that's the best place where you're going to find your ancestors as well as your power animals and spirit guides and things like that. I have never had a problem with someone going into lower world. It's definitely less tricky than, say, middle world and some of the places in middle world. I also find it most easy to find people's power animal in lower world. They have a tendency to be approached more there. As far as the entry point thing, first off, I do a lot of group drum work and group journeying work, and I've had a few people not able to get to lower world or upper world, not seem to be able to get anywhere, have that entry point issue. That has thus far, without fail, been because there was something they needed to learn. What I would suggest for you first is do what you've been doing, but when you start struggling, when you get to that entry point and you can't seem to figure out where you're going or what you're doing, call it for help. Say, I'm trying to do this, and I would like a spirit or helper with good intentions to help me, please, and see what happens. The other thing you can do is maybe you're not able to journey this way because you don't relate to, say, burrowing down into the ground or going into a cave. Medicine ways and shamanic practices are about helping people reach that place, helping take people into my world or bringing my world to you or whatever we need to do so you can have your experiences. So if you do not relate to going into a cave or going down into a hole, look for a door. You have gone through a door, right? Even if you've only lived in a city your whole life. So look for, say, two rocks that have come together with a door in between them and go through the door. Or look for a tree with roots that go all the way up and look for a door in the tree, like in the roots of the tree. and go down the stairs that are after that, or go down the tunnel that is after that. Another thing you can do is, if that is not working for you, or you're afraid to go into lower world, which depending on your background you might be, go to upper world first. A lot of practitioners don't go into upper world. I've actually met a lot of modern day practitioners who have not studied more traditional ways of doing things, who have never done that themselves. So of course they can't take you there. It's actually really simple to get there. Now, the difference with upper world as compared to lower world is you're going to find guides and teachers in upper world. You're not going to, well, if you do manage to find a power animal or something like that, that is rare. You're more likely going to find teachers there. So to go to upper world, take the stairway to heaven, literally. You can start by going into your trance state or your altered consciousness state, however it is you do that, or by shifting your weight. And then what you're going to do is, at first, visualize a set of stairs going up. And at first you're visualizing, then you're going to notice things about them. And at that point you're journeying, because you're no longer creating consciously, you're observing something that is. And what you're going to do is, what are those stairs made of? What color are they? How does the light look on them? How many are there? And then you start walking up the stairs. And with each step, you take a minute to pause and feel the difference in your body, because what you're doing is you're doing some interdimensional work, and you need to allow your body to adjust, your spiritual body to adjust as you go into upper world. When you get to the top of the stairs, there are a lot of places in these 3 different realms that we talk about. You will most likely end up in a place with a lot of clouds and a lot of light. It'll be very heavenly looking in the traditional sense. There's some discussion about this being the idea of where heaven came from. In the distance, you should see a group of people or beings or figures. Walk over to them. Say, I have come here looking for my guides and my teachers. Would the appropriate guides step forward on each of my sides where they belong, so that I can meet you, or so I can meet them? And then just notice what happens. Wait. Simply wait. And you should get a few beings, at least 4, 2 or 4 usually, will step forward, and they'll stand behind you, in front of you, and on each side of you. And for this particular meeting, just notice them, take a look at them, see how well you can make out who they are, see if you can make out who they are. Maybe you can open a dialogue with them, greet them, and then thank them. Make sure you thank them. And then go back to your stairs, go down the stairs, return to your normal consciousness, say your name 3 times. This pulls all your energy back, and then write down what happened. Because what happens is, as you go back to your normal daily consciousness, you will forget this. You think that you won't, but you will. So do take the time to write it down so you can reference it later. You might learn more and more from it later as things go on. If you're going to take this work seriously, you really do need to find a power animal. For most people that I've worked with, they find those in lower world. But this might be a good way to get you started with journeying, to see if this works a little bit better for you. What else is in this? Oh, the other thing that I wanted to mention, for people who have the other problem, rather than I journey at whim, maybe you get stuck and you can't seem to get started journeying. I also work with dream work. One of the things we do with dream work that help people learn to lucid dream is also useful for people to learn how to do journey work. And what you're going to do is, through the day, you're just going to take random moments, look around you and go, how do I know I'm not dreaming? You're going to look for things that tell you that you're not in the dream world. The other thing is, you can start to think you're in dreaming all the time and look around and start going, what is the symbology of everything around me? What does this experience mean? What did this conversation mean? And start looking at everything as a symbol. What this does is it starts to blur the line between your common reality and your dream state and your journey state. And some people find that to be very useful, and they find that bridge to be built a little bit more strongly. between the spiritual and the physical, and that's very helpful for them. The drums. First off, I don't believe it's just about cycling the brain a certain way. What that's referring to is the science that has been discovered about the different rhythms that we use for journey work and different ceremonies and things like that, which cause the electricity to work a certain way in the brain that make you more likely to have visions or experiences. And this person's saying, I don't think that's the whole story. You're absolutely correct. It's not the whole story. That's what science found, and that's excellent and beautiful, and I'm sure true. There's much more to the drum and a practitioner's relationship with their drum. I have a lot of drums. I do drum circles amongst other things. But I have one drum in specific that, specifically, that only I have ever played and that I have a relationship with, that I only use for journey work and healing and working on clients and doing my own kind of journey work. That drum has a different relationship with me. When you make a drum, there are a couple different things, a couple different traditional ways of making a drum that I've worked with. Some will tell you that you need to have a ceremony to release the spirit of all of the materials you're using to make the drum, and then call in the spirit of the drum. I like to do that. I've developed my own ceremony for that, and I'm no longer using the more traditional way of doing that I was trained in. Another teaching, one I learned when I was in Peru, is to hold the drum to your heart and visualize the animal, he said animal, that it came from, although I would add plant, because there's also plant material there, that it came from, and ask that for permission to play the drum. And you do this every time before you play the drum, and if the answer is no, then you don't play the drum at that moment. Regardless of how you make your drum, for me, having the drum's individual spirit really works for me. We have a conversation. I feel like my drum becomes a friend and a coworker, if you will. And I treat it as if it's part of my family. And that power really backs me up when I'm doing my work. It makes me more fearless. The relationship with your drum can look a couple different ways. For me, my drum has its own cushion. It does not sit on the floor. It has its own cover. I feed it. I talk to it every day. And by feeding it, I mean usually you leave an offering by your tool. And as you get more sensitive, you'll notice when the energy of the food moves and is gone. You're feeding your tool or your drum. And then you can take that food and put it in one of the elements so it recycles. I usually put it on the earth. My drum also in the beginning liked me to put butter on it, which what that'll do is slowly turn into like a suede and dull the sound, which in retrospect makes sense because the drum had a very sharp tone in the beginning. I don't recommend you do that unless the drum asks you to. I didn't know why the drum was asking that. In retrospect, it makes sense. The other thing is I talk to my drum. I thank my drum. I ask for permission before I play it. I actually wanted to bring it on the screen here and it was like, no. So you're not seeing it, even though I would like you to have that experience. That's respect that you have for the spirit that is in that tool. That's for respect for your friend, respect for your coworker, respect for your family member. And as you do that, the longer you do that, the more powerful your relationship becomes, the more powerful the drumming is. Other options you have, though, if the drum doesn't work for you, that's okay. You can use rattles, you can use recordings, you can possibly, for you, just shift your weight, and you don't need another tool, if that's what works for you. The difficulty, and actually when I started learning to use things like drums and rattles and canes and staffs to be on the ground, comes if you start serving your community. Not everyone can just shift their weight and be somewhere. But if you're doing this for your private practice, which for this person, that's what it sounds like is where they are, perhaps you don't need an instrument. But you can also use other instruments or recordings. You can also try rocking. When you start going into things, you can try chanting. There are lots of different ways to enter into a journey and then leave the journey. So I hope that helps you out. Have a great day. If you want to get in touch with me, my contact info is below the video, as well as where else you can find me online. And hope this video was helpful for you. Have a great day.